Well, that trip to the coffee shop went really, really well. Really well. Too well. Yeah. I'm doing great. Whew. Much better. Much better. What's up, book nerds? My name is Genevieve, and this is Genevieve's Reading. So, I wanted to talk today about my April TBR, how it's going, where it's going, and also, I guess, talk a little bit about myself and my reading journey, if you will, just to give people an understanding of where I'm coming from, what I like, what I don't like, and you can agree or disagree with me in the comments. How does that sound? Does that sound like a plan? Okay, great. So first of all, if you haven't, please like and subscribe to this. It's a tiny little baby YouTube space in the corner of the deepest, darkest regions of the internet, and anyone and all friendly people are welcome. With that being said, let's get started. So first of all, I want to talk about April, how it's going. Quite well so far, but to be honest, I kind of set myself up for a bit of a tough month. I basically decided that I wanted to get through a few different categories of books. I have a category that's just book of the month, getting through those stories, which I tend to enjoy, so weeding through that. Last year, as you might know, because I have a video about it on my channel, I read every single book of the month pick, period, whether I liked it or not. And you can check out that video. I'm sure there's a link to it somewhere. But this year, I'm attempting to read all of them again, but I am allowing myself to DNF. So yeah, there's that. Then I have another category that's books that I've had on my shelf for a long time that I have really, really wanted to get to, and for whatever reason I keep putting off. And it's something that I'm definitely talking about with my therapist, because it's always books that I know that I'm going to like, that I continually decide to kind of push back. I don't understand what that, like this need to almost wait to experience joy and then never getting to it. Like, that's really deep, right? Like, what is that? So I'm bumping those up and saying, okay, no, I'm going to read at least a few of these a month to at least give them a shot. Maybe I don't actually like them. Maybe I'm just setting it up in my head that I'm going to really like it. I've done this in the past with authors that I really love, like where I'll just delay reading their newest book. Britt Bennett, I did that with The Vanishing Half because I loved The Mother so much, and there was a part of me that was almost scared that I wouldn't like The Vanishing Half. Turns out I loved it. So yeah, that's a whole other category. Then the other category is books I have for book clubs. And so there's a few that I've already read this month and also DNF'd for this month as well. And one of those that I'm currently reading, but I decided to break it up into reading so many pages a day, which I don't do that all the time, but for this I decided to do that. It's The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. And I'm only reading 15 pages a day, which is actually kind of nice. So there's that. Then I have arcs that I get to. So that's a whole other category, is like making sure I'm reading the arcs that I say that I would like to read, which are really exciting. It's like a mystery book, right? Because nobody else has read it, so you have no idea what to expect outside of what the publisher's telling you. And let's be totally honest, the publishers are not accurate about describing their own books. That is not a thing that publishers are apparently particularly good at doing. This month for April, okay, I started the month of April. I'm just going to talk about the ones that I've already read so far. I started with an arc from NetGalley called Bi, The Hidden Culture, History, and Science of Bisexuality. Then Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys, The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, The Unsinkable Greta, what was it? The Unsinkable Greta something, Greta James. I'm like, it's like James Jones, something like that. I didn't really like that one very much. My first DNF was The Dawn Hounds, an arc that I got through Simon & Schuster. Thank you, Simon & Schuster, for sending it to me. I'm gonna maybe try to go back to it, but I'm having a really hard time sinking into that world, unfortunately, and I'm really disappointed because the description of that book sounded so my thing, and it had excellent pull quotes from authors that I like, so oof, it's rough. Then let's see, The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Finished that this month. Stephen King's The Skeleton Crew. Ruta Sepetys, I Must Betray You. That's her latest book that just came out, and I got that through Book of the Month. And let's see, Katie Martine's A Memory Called Empire, which I just finished yesterday, and Lizzie Pook's Moonlight and the Pearler's Daughter, another arc through Simon & Schuster. Thank you, Simon & Schuster. It's through their book club friends group that they mail out physical arcs to. You get to choose like 2 out of like a list. And yeah, both of mine happen to be authors that were either from or discussing Australia and New Zealand generally. So that was kind of interesting. Sorrowland by River Solomon. I DNF'd it yesterday. I just don't think I'm in the right mood for that book right now. I think that book is my thing, but I'm just not in the mood for the particular voice that's in it. And when I say the voice, what I mean is there seems to be this sort of legendy, mystical, magical kind of voice to it that I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm really looking for a very contemporary voice right now, and I don't know why. I want the person to sound like they live in the right now times and are talking in the right now times. And that book is not like that. It's clearly, from what little I've read, and I DNF'd it very early on, I guess I sampled it. It seems like it's post-apocalyptic. It has something to do with a cult. I'm just not in the mood for a cult book right now. I think that's really what it is. And like, there's clearly a religion of a particular type in it. And I will get there. Don't worry. Because I feel I need to apologize because I know that's a good book. I've had several people recommend it to me, and I believe them. I just think right now I'm, gonna pass on it and circle back to it. I actually look back at my DNF list throughout the year, and I kind of go, maybe there's something on here that I passed on that I can go back to and kind of reconnect with. So that'll be there for me when I am ready for it. Let's see. Then Erica Krause's Tell Me Everything. I just finished that this morning, and I have really divided feelings about that book. And it's awkward because it's nonfiction and it's about someone's life, and they go into some really traumatic topics. I mean, that book is just one huge trigger warning for discussions about sexual assault. So, be aware of that when you go into it. Yeah. I really enjoyed most of that book and when I say enjoyed, I mean I got into the story. I was swept into her narrative. But there were times when, and she freely admits this, that she kind of makes these certain mistakes that, I don't know, just made me kind of uncomfortable. And I guess that's kind of part of it, right? I don't expect my narrator to be perfect, and I'm not anticipating that, but it's really hard to divulge without kind of spoiling it. So if you want to talk about that book, hit me up, especially if you know that we're in the same Discord. I'm talking about the Book Talk, etc. Discord. If you're watching this and you're from there, I really would like to talk to somebody about this book. Because there were parts that were really kind of borderline shocking to me, specifically about her interaction with one character in particular. And yeah, interesting. Anyway, so that's what I have read. I am currently in the process of reading The Verifiers by Jane Peck, which I'm really enjoying right now. This is a really fun and funny book. I love this type of mystery. It's not super cozy, but it does have elements that cozy mysteries employ which is like a almost meta knowledge of the mystery genre, and her pacing is really great. Her characterization is really great. I do like books that take place in New York City, and this is really good for that. So all around, top to bottom, really enjoying that one so far. Then I have The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich, as I already mentioned, that I'm reading just little 15 pages a day. And I'll be honest, like, that seems to be the way to read this book for me right now. It is, if I went too quickly through this book, I would lose all track of these characters because there are many, 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 many characters. And the way that the book is structured, it's not a bunch of short stories, but each character POV is basically like one little sliced chapter, and there's no chapter number. It's just like a name of the chapter, and it does kind of feel like a little short story, right? Like, or a mini blip into this person's POV for literally a page or two. So just reading a few of those at a time, and kind of slowly collecting them. I'll think about this book later in the day, or I'll, I don't know, cogitate on it. And it's just been nice to savor it. That's what I'll say about that book. I have read Future, or what is it? Oh my gosh, I forget the name of the other book. I have to look it up because it's really going to bug me if I cannot think of the name. She's written so many books too. Future Home of the Living God. That's the other one that I've read of hers. And I really enjoyed that one. So I'm really liking this one. And I'm curious about the sentence. I know people have feelings about it, but I want to develop my own feelings about it. All right, coffee break. All right. So that's what I'm currently reading. Oh, I also started The Plot on Kindle, which is really fun. The main character is such a douche, and you know, it's really clear she's setting me up to feel that way very early on. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And I feel like the blurb that the publisher has about it gives away too much of the plot, but whatever, it's fine. All right, so this is what I have coming up that I would like to get through. And I'm just going to rattle off some titles, and I'll put the names into the video so that you can see them. And I'll also talk about them below too. So if you miss something, you'll be able to find it. So I have Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, Tara M. Stringfellow's Memphis, Booth by Karen Joy Fowler, A Secret History by Donna Tartt, The Cartographers by Peng, Shepard, let's see, Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. You probably haven't heard of this one. It's called The Confession by Jessie Burton. She's a British author, and I got that book through a Haywood Hill subscription. And she wrote The Miniaturist. I'm not familiar with her work really at all, but The Miniaturist seems to be her big one. This one I don't think really went anywhere, but it also came out in like 2019, like right before everything went wild. So I think it just kind of got lost in the fray there. But I've had it on my shelf since I got it from Haywood Hill, and I really want to read it. Like a Sister by Kellye, Garrett. Kaikeyi by, oh, I'm so sorry, by Vaishnavi Patel. Vaishnavi Patel. Ugh. I hate it when people mispronounce my name, and I feel really bad when I mispronounce other people's names. I just haven't heard it pronounced, so I totally apologize. Let's see. Witches Steeped in Gold by Ciannon Smart. Or it could be Shannon Smart. Because C-I could be pronounced. It's spelled C-I-A-N-N-O-N. It could be... Anyway. Excited about that one. I have that one from Owlcrate from like a year ago, 2 years ago? A while ago. The Philosopher's War by Tom Miller. And... Helene Wecker, she wrote The Golem and the Jinni. So that one I'm actually a little nervous that I might not like. I started it on audio and realized that I kind of wasn't feeling it. So I might go back to it on Kindle, and if not, I might just leave it go because it's fine. I think I got it for like $2 on Kindle. So I'm one of those people that like is always looking at the daily deals, you know. Then the other book that I'm starting this month, but I will not be finishing this month, it's going to be like a regular check-in kind of thing, is It by Stephen King. I had started it a long time ago. I'd read not much of it. It's very long. I probably read a lot more of it than I thought, to be honest, because it's a 1,000-page book. So if you get like 10% in, that's, you know, still a lot. So... I know that it's considered as magnum opus. At this point, I'm reading through all of Stephen King's book in publication order with my family. We started this during the lockdown as like a way of staying together and just having something to talk about. We always have something to talk about, but this is just like a nice little family project we're working on. And we're now finally at it. We're in the 80s. We're in like peak Stephen King territory. So I'm going to make a video probably at some point checking in about all of the Stephen King that I've read. I'd just like to get through more of it. I'd like to get into the 90s before I do that, just to, I don't know, have a really good chunk of some of the classics kind of done. Or maybe I'll do it after It. I don't know, because It is considered to be like the big one. So that is my check-in for my April TBR. thanks for listening to that. And if you are on Goodreads, I'm there. I also started using this new website called Italic Type, which has been kind of cool. It's brand new, so they're still figuring some stuff out. But so far it's interesting. I'm terrible at updating my story graph. I really need to work on that. It's just once you get away from it, it's really hard to go back. And Goodreads isn't great either. Like, what I really use and what I really like is actually, and what I was reading from there was the spreadsheet from Sarah's Bookshelves Live. I love that spreadsheet. It is so well done, and I've kind of crafted it to my needs as well. So yeah, I can't recommend that enough. I got that by being a Patreon supporter at the $7 a month level, and it's totally worth it. Like, she creates great content. The other thing that I've been doing this month reading wise is Book Talk Etc. has a Discord now, and I'm also a Patreon supporter of their podcast, and it's so great. I love it. Like, if you're not in the BTE community, go check it out, because it is so great. And I love talking with the readers over there. They're just so awesome. I love how I'm like promoting everybody's Patreon. I don't have a Patreon, so go support their Patreons. They're fantastic. And yeah, it's been really fun to get to know people. And that leads me to my next topic of kind of talking about my reading and sort of where, who I am as a reader, because we've been introducing ourselves to each other and kind of feeling each other out. And it's been really fun. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background about what I read, what I like to read, kind of where I started, etc. I have been a pretty big reader my whole life. And I've been an audiobook reader since I was very little. So to me, listening to an audiobook, and when I was listening to them as a kid, they were books on tape. So that gives you some perspective. To me, there's no difference. And because there isn't a difference, this idea that like audiobooks are somehow different from reading a book with your eyes, I think, is silly. Some people talk about being able to read faster than they can listen to it. Well, there's a way of like upping the speed. I promise you. Like, you can up the speed of an audiobook faster than you could actually physically read it. Trust. But you don't need to do that. I mean, read audiobooks don't. I personally have been listening to them for so long that they make up about 50% of my reading per month now, based on the tracking that I'm doing. I do like to kind of read and listen back and forth sometimes, especially if like I'm in a place where I can't really listen to a book. So yeah, I started off as a big audiobook reader as a kid, as well as a book reader with my eyeballs. I started off thinking that and I think many people go through this, that, it's all about the classics. And then I realized I don't care for a ton of classics. I was as a kid, and I would have to say The Secret Garden was one of my first favorite books. I absolutely loved it. Was completely devastated when I saw the Fox Searchlight production of it on VHS that I got for my first Holy Communion, and was devastated that, what do you mean the movies changed the book? The book is perfect. You don't need to change it. Very that. I also loved Little Women as a kid, and I still love Little Women. When I saw Greta Gerwig's adaptation of it, I think it's the best adaptation there is. That's like my early reading. Then I moved on, like I said, I read Goosebumps, I read all that stuff. And then I jumped to, adult books pretty quickly. And I started off actually with cozy mysteries. I basically read everything that my mom would read, and she read a lot, and she still reads a lot. Whatever was on her shelves, which is a myriad of things, including, anything from like Sue Grafton to like Abby Hoffman. So like quite the wide range of books. Some classics too. She had like C.S. Lewis, and she had J.R.R. Tolkien. And then like everybody else, I kind of fell off in college, just because you're busy with college. But then as an adult, my reading really is just kind of like taken off. And it truly is the hobby that I come back to that gives me so much pleasure, that just allows me to escape, especially during the pandemic. At first, during lockdown, I couldn't read. I couldn't focus on anything. I was so, I don't know. I was so overwhelmed, I guess, like everybody else. And I went through a pretty dark period of just feeling really lost. And I actually threw myself into work. And then I realized that by doing that, I was kind of replacing the fear and anxiety with work, which didn't really solve a lot of my problems. If anything, it actually screwed up my shoulder, which I'm still recovering from, and it just wasn't the right answer. And I had a copy of Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which I'm not saying is like the best book ever, but I was kind of plodding through it, kind of forcing myself to read it, which is not something I normally do. And then I got to 50% and I just took off and I couldn't stop reading it. And during this time, I had been a Book of the Month subscriber since like 2016. And I would get like a book, and I never skipped, but, I would sort of just kind of plod along. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't think too much of it. But then once I took off with Ninth House, I started reading more and I wound up finding Facebook groups on specifically about Book of the Month. And at that time, and I'm still not a big Facebook user, I kind of need it for work, but that's really it. And I don't know what possessed me, but I found the group and just was able to kind of escape into that. And since then, discovered Sarah's Bookshelves Live podcast. I discovered Book Talk, etc. podcast. And, I love that reading for me is this safe place that I can always just get lost into. And I decided to kind of challenge myself a little bit with reading a variety of different genres. And I've come to the conclusion, and this is sort of me as a reader now, a portrait into me as a reader now. I think that genre is just a marketing term. It doesn't really matter to me, the genre of a book at all. I would say, especially early on in my adult life, I trended more towards things that were like on the New York Times bestseller list or Booker list, short list, long list folks, or National Book Award winners. So mostly literary fiction, mostly. But I realize now that genre is such a meaningless thing. It really is the writing. It's the writing that brings me back. I mean, Marlon James publishes fantasy, right? And he is a Booker Prize winner who, created a historical / literary fiction book, right? So like genre really is just a way of kind of flagging, I guess, certain trope expectations maybe, but even then not really. So when it comes to, I don't have favorite genres at this point anymore. I've disavowed that concept. You have to kind of put that in places like for your NetGalley profile and stuff like that. But to me, it comes down to the writing, and it comes down to what sort of world am I entering into, and how is the author getting me there? How is the author guiding me through this experience? If, say, for instance, like The Verifiers is a great example. It is clear that Jane Peck knows what is expected of a mystery, but she's also able to put her stamp on it, right? With her own quality of writing, her own voice, her own characters, her own look at New York City. She's doing that a lot in this book, I've noticed, is that she'll say things like, she'll just bring you into being a cyclist in New York. That's a whole like sub-thread within this book of riding a bike through New York City, which I think is really cool and is super working for me. So I think trope is a better way of kind of knowing if I'm going to like something. For instance, with my romance, I'm not really crazy about age gap. Doesn't mean I won't try it, but I'm probably not going to love it. Things like that, if that makes any sense. But just saying like, oh, I don't read romance. Like, no, like I read literally everything. I'll try just about anything. And otherwise, I certainly have had run-ins with things. The things that don't work for me, the things that really don't work for me are when an author tries to bring in a genre into a literary fiction sort of book, and it clearly doesn't know how to do that. A really good example of one of my least favorite books is called Night Film. And I don't even remember the author's name. I feel really bad. But basically she took, it's a literary fiction book that she kind of threw some mystery stuff into and some suspense things into, and did not do that well. And the end really pissed me off. I was like, what is this? Like you're setting up all of this stuff and then just saying, and then giving this like literary twist ending. And I was like, get out of here. It's not even a twist. Also, I am a really big fan of earning, like setting up pins and knocking them down, right? So earning that ending. Another book I really disliked was Sarah Pinborough's Behind Their Eyes. Just not enough clues and really relying on like flat characterization. I swear to God, like if I hear one more book describe their character with like ballet flats, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. I can't stand it. It's so frustrating. No. Bring me into a cool world. Show me people that I would never ever interact with in real life. Or if I do interact with them, I know them. I can, they feel three-dimensional to me. Yeah, that's generally my thing. So I hope that explains a little bit about what I like, where I'm coming from, what I'm looking for in a book. I guess I read relatively diversely. I don't know. I feel like that's always a journey, and there's always more that I could be expanding upon. And my next big goal for this year is to read books in an original language. It's not English. So I am working with my German tutor to read a little bit more in German. And otherwise, that's kind of, I don't know, everything. Oh, I do want to reach 200 books this year, not because it's about the number. It's about, I have all of these books here that I really just want to get to. And I really want to make sure that I am actually reading the books that I'm purchasing and not just buying things to have on a shelf, or stuffed in my Kindle. And so, yeah, that's like a really important goal for me, is to like go through and really, if it's not working for me, if I don't like it, divest myself of it. So put it out into the book sea, the book ocean. So tell me what kind of reader you are down below. And otherwise, thanks for, letting me talk in your ear. I hope you enjoyed some of this. And if you did, again, you know what to do, the whole like and subscribe thing, and bring your friends over. And otherwise, I will see you next time, book nerds. Bye.